Isabella Hartford's knees hit the wet grass, hands clutching the termination letter as sobs tore through her chest. "Please," she choked out to the empty garden. "Please, I'll do anything." "Anything?" Isabella's head snapped up. A woman stood 3 feet away, silver hair, diamond necklace that could buy a house eyes like a predator spotting wounded prey. "Then listen very carefully, girl. You're going to pretend to be my son's fiancée, starting in 10 minutes. Before we continue with this shocking twist, please subscribe and follow this story to the very end. Comment your city below so I can see how far this tale has traveled across the world." Isabella scrambled to her feet, nearly tripping over her worn skirt. "Who are Dowager Duchess Helena Blackwood?" The woman stepped closer. "And you're the music teacher who just got fired." Heat flooded Isabella's face. "How did you—" "No, because Lady Ashworth announced it to half the ballroom. Something about you seducing her son." "I didn't seduce anyone. He proposed. I said no, she got offended and ruined you." "Yes, I know how it works." Helena pulled out a handkerchief. "Stop crying. We have business to discuss." "I don't understand." "Your mother is dying. Consumption. You have perhaps £200 to your name, most of which you'll spend on rent you can't afford. Am I wrong?" Isabella's throat closed. "How do you know about my mother?" "I know everything about you, Miss Hartford, including that you're desperate enough to accept my offer." "What offer?" Helena produced a folded document. 6 months as my son's fake fiancée. £5,000 when it's done." The number made Isabella dizzy. 5,000, that's impossible." "It's business. You need money. I need a solution to a problem. My son is being pressured into marrying Lady Vivian Harrington, a vicious creature who'll destroy him. I need her off his back. You need your mother to live."
"Simple. Your son will never agree to this. He will when he understands the alternative." Helena held out the document.
"Read it. You have 5 minutes before I withdraw the offer."
Isabella's hands shook as she unfolded the contract. The terms were clear, almost brutal in their simplicity. 6 months. Public affection. Private distance. £5,000.
"This is insane."
"This is survival. For both of you." Helena checked a small watch pinned to her dress. 4 minutes. "Why me? Why not someone from your world?" "Because everyone in my world would try to make it permanent. You understand this is temporary. You need money, not a title." Helena's voice softened fractionally. "And because I watched you play piano at the Thornton Musicale last month. You have talent, intelligence, and enough pride to hate what I'm offering while being desperate enough to take it." Isabella looked down at the contract. £5,000. Her mother's medical care. A home. Hope.
"If I do this, I won't hurt him. Your son. I won't humiliate him or—" "Good. That's why you're perfect." Helena produced a pen. "Sign it or walk away. Choose now." Isabella signed. Helena's smile was sharp with satisfaction. She pulled out an envelope thick with banknotes. £200. Advance. The rest comes in installments." Isabella stared at more money than she'd seen in years. "Now then." Helena tucked the contract away. "Dry your eyes. Fix your hair. In 8 minutes, I'm introducing you to my son." 8 minutes, I can't possibly." "You can, and you will. Come." Helena strode toward the manor house like a general leading troops. Isabella followed, heart hammering, clutching the envelope of money that had just bought 6 months of her life. They entered through a side door, avoiding the main ballroom. Helena moved through hallways with absolute confidence, servants jumping aside. "Your Grace," one footman stammered. "The Duke was looking for—" "Tell him I'm in the Rose Salon. Send him there immediately." Helena didn't break stride. The Rose Salon was smaller, more intimate. Helena positioned Isabella by the fireplace. Stand up straight. Look me in the eye when speaking. Don't fidget. I'm not a child. You're a music teacher about to pretend you're worthy of a duke. Act like it. The door opened. Mother, what's this about? I'm in the middle of... He stopped, stared at Isabella. Alexander Blackwood was younger than Isabella expected. Early 30s maybe. Dark hair, darker eyes, currently filled with confusion. Alexander, darling. Helena's voice turned honey-sweet. You remember Miss Isabella Hartford? His expression didn't change. I've never met this woman in my life. Of course you have. From the Thornton Musicale, she played Chopin beautifully. Mother, don't be modest, darling. I know you've been courting her privately. So refreshing that you finally found someone worthy. Alexander's jaw tightened. What are you playing at? Playing I'm announcing your engagement. The silence was deafening. My what? You're engaged to Miss Hartford, effective immediately. Helena beamed. Isn't it wonderful? Have you lost your mind? Not at all. In fact, I'm solving several problems at once. Vivian Harrington's been hounding you, the Queen's been pressing for a match, and you've been stubbornly refusing every suitable option I've presented. Well, now you're off the market. Alexander turned to Isabella. You. Explain what's happening. Now. Isabella met his eyes. Your mother offered me £5,000 to pretend to be your fiancée for 6 months. I accepted because I'm desperate, and she's apparently very good at identifying leverage. His eyes widened fractionally. You're remarkably honest about being dishonest. I won't lie to you more than necessary. That's the best I can offer. The best you can... He spun toward Helena. You paid her to pretend. I created a solution. Vivian is closing in. The Queen won't take no for an answer much longer. This buys you time. By creating a massive lie, by creating a temporary inconvenience. 6 months, Alexander. Then a quiet mutual parting. No scandal, no forced marriage to that harpy. And what happens when people discover the truth? They won't, because you're both going to sell this performance beautifully. Helena moved toward the door. Now I'm returning to the ballroom. In 5 minutes you'll follow with your new fiancée. Smile, touch her hand, look besotted. Can you manage that, Mother? She was gone. Alexander stared at the closed door, then at Isabella. This is insane. I know. You actually agreed to this. My mother is dying. I need the money. So you sold yourself. The words stung, but Isabella kept her voice steady. Yes, I did. If that offends your delicate sensibilities, you're welcome to expose me right now. I'll return the advance and leave, but you'll still have to explain to everyone why your engagement lasted exactly 4 minutes. Something flickered in his expression, not quite respect, but close. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone easier to intimidate. He moved closer, studying her. What's your real name? Your full name? Isabella Marie Hartford, daughter of the late Charles Hartford, former music teacher, current desperate woman willing to lie for money. At least you're honest about it. Would you prefer I pretended this was romantic? His laugh was sharp. God, no. I prefer knowing exactly what this is, a business arrangement my mother orchestrated because she can't stop meddling in my life. So what do we do? Alexander was quiet for a long moment. Then, we renegotiate. Renegotiate. If we're doing this, we're doing it properly. No half measures. You'll move into Thornwick House tonight. You'll learn everything necessary to actually pass as my fiancé, etiquette, family history, social navigation. I won't have you exposed as a fraud because you don't know the difference between a duke's coronet and a marquis's.
I can learn. You'll have to. Fast. He moved to the door. And one more thing, Miss Hartford. When this ends, it ends cleanly. No expectations, no hopes for something more. This is 6 months of mutual deception for mutual benefit. Nothing more. I understand. Good. He opened the door. Then let's go announce our engagement. Isabella's heart hammered. Right now? Mother's already told half the ballroom by now. We might as well make it official. He offered his arm. Come along, fiancé, let's give them a show. Isabella took his arm, feeling the solid warmth of him through layers of fabric. They walked through hallways, her mind spinning. Wait, she said suddenly. I look terrible. I've been crying. My dress is awful. Yes, I noticed. His tone was almost amused. We'll say you were overcome with emotion when I proposed. Women are supposed to cry at engagements, aren't they? You've clearly never been engaged before. And yet here we are. They reached the ballroom entrance. Isabella could hear music, laughter, the hum of conversation. Ready? Alexander asked. No. Excellent. Neither am I. He pushed open the doors. The ballroom fell silent as they entered. Hundreds of eyes turned toward them. Helena appeared instantly beaming. There you are. Everyone's been asking about the announcement. What announcement, mother? Alexander's voice carried across the room. Helena's smile was pure theatrical delight. Why, your engagement to Miss Hartford, of course. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Isabella felt her face burning. A woman pushed through the throng, blonde, beautiful, wearing white silk and fury. Lady Vivian Harrington. This is absurd, Vivian announced. The Duke would never choose some nobody. Careful, Lady Vivian. Alexander's voice went cold. You're speaking about my fiancé. More gasps. Vivian's face flushed scarlet. Your fiancé. This is obviously some mistake. She's a music teacher, for God's sake. Was a music teacher. Alexander pulled Isabella closer. Now she's the future Duchess of Thornwick. I suggest you adjust your tone accordingly. Vivian's mouth opened and closed. She looked like she might actually explode. When did this happen? Someone called out. We've been courting privately for several weeks, Alexander said smoothly. I proposed this evening in the garden. She accepted. How romantic, another voice cooed. Suspicious, more like... Vivian hissed. No one's even heard of her. I have... Helena interrupted cheerfully. Lovely family. Her father was quite accomplished before his death, and her talent at the piano is extraordinary. I heard her perform last month and knew instantly she'd be perfect for Alexander. Perfect. Vivian's laugh was shrill. She's wearing a dress that's been turned twice and paste pearls. Are you critiquing my fiancé's fashion choices? Alexander's tone could have frozen water. How interesting. I wasn't aware you had any authority over what she wears. I'm simply observing. You're being rude to a woman who will outrank you in approximately 6 months. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. I'd be more careful if I were you, Lady Vivian. Duchesses have long memories. Vivian looked genuinely shocked. She'd clearly expected him to back down to admit it was a joke or a mistake. Instead, Alexander turned to Isabella. Darling, you look exhausted. Would you like some air? The endearment felt strange, almost wrong, but Isabella played along. Please. He guided her through the crowd, which parted like water. Whispers erupted in their wake. They made it to a terrace before Isabella's knees went weak. Steady. Alexander's hand gripped her elbow. Don't faint. That would be too dramatic even for this farce. I think I'm going to be sick. Not on my shoes. These are Italian. Despite everything, Isabella almost laughed. You're joking right now. If I don't joke, I'll start screaming. This is easily the most insane thing I've ever done. He released her elbow. And I once jumped off a cliff into the ocean on a dare. Did you survive? Obviously, though I'm less certain about surviving this. Isabella leaned against the stone balustrade, trying to steady her breathing. That was horrible. That was necessary. Vivian needed to understand this is real or real enough that she can't interfere. She hates me now. She hated you the moment Mother announced our engagement. At least now she knows you're not going anywhere. He paused. Well, not for 6 months anyway. The reminder stung. Right.
This was temporary. Fake. Business. What happens now? Now you come home with me. We'll tell the guests you're exhausted from the excitement, collect whatever belongings you have, and get you settled at Thornwick House before this becomes even more complicated. It can get more complicated. You have no idea. He moved toward the ballroom entrance. Wait here. I'll make our excuses. He disappeared inside, leaving Isabella alone on the terrace. She pulled out the envelope of money, staring at the banknotes. £200, the advance on her own deception. Quite the little actress, aren't you? Isabella spun. Vivian stood in the doorway, her expression pure venom. Lady Vivian, don't play innocent with me. I know exactly what you are. A fortune hunter who somehow convinced Helena to back your ridiculous scheme. That's not. Save it. I don't care about your lies. Vivian stepped closer. But understand this. You may have fooled the Duke for now, but I will expose you. And when I do, you'll be ruined so thoroughly that no one in England will even remember your name. Are you threatening me? I'm promising you. Enjoy your little game while it lasts, Miss Hartford, because it won't last long. She swept away just as Alexander returned. Ready to? He stopped, seeing Isabella's expression. What happened? Nothing. You're a terrible liar. What did Vivian say? That she'll expose me and ruin me. Alexander's jaw tightened. She can try. Come on. Let's get you out of here before she decides to do something dramatic. They left through a side entrance, avoiding the main crowd. A carriage waited outside, black, elegant, bearing what Isabella assumed was the Thornwick crest. Get in, Alexander said. I need to collect my things from Mrs. Peterson's boarding house on Clerkenwell Road. His expression didn't change, but Isabella saw the flicker of recognition. Clerkenwell was not a fashionable address. We'll stop there. He helped her into the carriage, then climbed in across from her. The carriage lurched forward. In the enclosed space, Isabella was acutely aware of him, the tension in his shoulders, the controlled way he held himself. You can ask, Alexander said suddenly. Ask what? Whatever you're thinking. You keep looking at me like you want to say something. Isabella hesitated. Why did you agree to this? Really? Your mother can't actually force you to do anything. Can't she? His smile was bitter. You don't know Helena. When she wants something, she gets it. Usually by making the alternative so unpalatable you'd rather do anything else. The alternative being Vivian. The alternative being Vivian, the Queen's displeasure, a forced marriage, and every political reform I've been working toward getting destroyed because my wife actively undermines me at every turn. He leaned back. 6 months of pretending is infinitely preferable, even with a stranger, especially with a stranger. At least I know you'll leave when the contract ends. A real wife would be permanent. The words shouldn't have hurt. This was business. But something in Isabella's chest tightened anyway. The carriage stopped in front of Mrs. Peterson's shabby boarding house.
Alexander looked at it with barely concealed distaste. I'll wait here. It won't take long. I don't have much. Isabella climbed out and hurried inside. Mrs. Peterson appeared instantly, eyes narrowed. Miss Hartford, I thought you were at the Ashworth ball. Getting yourself dismissed, I heard. I'm leaving, Mrs. Peterson, collecting my things now. Leaving you owe 2 weeks' rent. Isabella pulled out several banknotes. This covers what I owe plus next month. Consider it my notice. Mrs. Peterson's eyes widened at the money. Where did you get? Good evening, Mrs. Peterson. Isabella climbed the narrow stairs to her tiny room. Everything she owned fit into 2 small bags. Clothes, a few books, her mother's jewelry box. She took one last look at the cramped space that had been home for 3 years. Then she left. Alexander helped her into the carriage without comment, though his eyes lingered on her meagre belongings. That's everything. That's everything. He nodded once. Thornwick House, then. The carriage rolled through London's streets from shabby boarding houses to elegant squares to the exclusive neighbourhood where dukes lived. When they finally stopped, Isabella stepped out and stared. Thornwick House wasn't a house. It was a palace. 4 stories of pale stone elaborate windows, a garden that probably employed a dozen groundskeepers. This is where you live. This is where we live, for the next 6 months anyway. Alexander offered his arm. Welcome home, fiancée. Isabella took his arm and let him lead her up the steps through massive doors into an entrance hall that could have fit her entire former lodging 3 times over. Servants appeared, a housekeeper, several maids, footmen. Mrs. Davies, Alexander addressed the housekeeper. This is Miss Hartford. She'll be staying with us. Please prepare the rose suite and assign a lady's maid. Of course, Your Grace. Mrs. Davies curtsied to Isabella. Welcome, Miss Hartford. Thank you, Isabella managed. Miss Hartford has had an exhausting evening, Alexander continued. Please see that she has everything she needs. We'll discuss the details tomorrow. Very good, Your Grace. Mrs. Davies gestured for Isabella to follow. They climbed a grand staircase, walked through hallways lined with portraits and expensive artwork. The rose suite was larger than the entire boarding house had been. 4-poster bed, dressing room, private bathing chamber, sitting area. I'll send someone to help you undress, miss, Mrs. Davies said. And I'll have a supper tray sent up. You must be famished. Yes, thank you. Mrs. Davies left. A maid appeared moments later with Isabella's bags, then another with a tea service and delicate sandwiches. Isabella sat on the impossibly soft bed and started laughing. It was either laugh or cry. She'd gone from fired, destitute, and desperate to engaged to a duke and living in a palace. All in approximately 3 hours. She pulled out the contract, reading it again. 6 months, £5,000, a chance to save her mother. All she had to do was lie convincingly for half a year. How hard could it be? A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Come in. Alexander entered, still in his evening clothes. Settled. I'm not sure settled is the right word. More like disoriented. That's fair. He moved to the window, looking out at the garden. We need to establish some ground rules. Rules? For living in the same house while maintaining appropriate boundaries. He turned to face her. Your suite is in the east wing. Mine is in the west. We maintain separate spaces. No wandering into each other's private rooms. I wouldn't. I'm sure you wouldn't. But we're establishing expectations now to avoid awkwardness later. He counted on his fingers. Public spaces are shared breakfast room, library, drawing rooms. My study is off limits unless I specifically invite you. The servants will be told you're my fiancée and should be treated accordingly.
Any questions? Several, but they can wait until tomorrow. Good. He moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing. Tomorrow morning my mother will arrive with a modiste. You'll need new clothes immediately. I have clothes. You have rags. No offense, but if you appear in public wearing anything from those bags, people will question why I'm marrying you. The blunt assessment stung. I see. I'm not trying to be cruel, Isabella. I'm being practical. You need to look the part. That requires better clothes than a music teacher can afford. And after 6 months, when I go back to being a music teacher, you'll have £5,000, enough to never work again if you invest it properly. His expression softened fractionally. Or enough to open your own music academy, support yourself on your terms instead of wealthy families' whims. The thought hadn't occurred to her. A music academy, her own. That's actually a good idea. I have them occasionally. He opened the door. Get some rest. Tomorrow will be exhausting. More exhausting than tonight. Exponentially. Good night, Isabella. Good night, Alexander. He left. Isabella sat in the enormous suite, surrounded by luxury she'd never imagined, wearing a dress she'd turned twice, holding a contract that had just changed her entire life. She thought about her mother, sick and struggling. Thought about the money that could save her. Thought about the handsome, complicated duke she'd just agreed to deceive for 6 months. What had she gotten herself into? But as she finally climbed into the softest bed she'd ever felt, exhaustion pulling her towards sleep, Isabella realized something. For the first time in years, she had hope, even if that hope was built on lies. Isabella woke to someone shaking her shoulder. Miss Hartford, you need to wake up." She opened her eyes to find a young maid hovering over her, looking terrified. "What time is it?" "6:30, miss. The Dowager Duchess is here and she's demanding to see you immediately." "Past." Isabella sat up, panic flooding through her. "She said she'd come in the morning, not at dawn." "Her Grace doesn't believe in sleeping late, miss. She's waiting in the breakfast room." Isabella scrambled out of bed, still wearing yesterday's dress because she'd been too exhausted to change. The maid, what was her name, looked horrified. "You slept in your clothes." "I was tired." "But miss, you can't go downstairs like that. Your hair." "We'll have to wait. If Helena's already here, keeping her waiting is worse than looking dishevelled." Isabella grabbed her shawl. "Where's the breakfast room?" "Down the main stairs, turn right, third door on the left. But miss—" Isabella was already moving. She found Helena seated at an enormous table, calmly eating toast while reading a newspaper. The Dowager Duchess looked up as Isabella entered. "Good morning. You look terrible." "Good morning to you too, Your Grace. I slept well, thank you for asking." Helena's lips twitched. "Sarcasm before breakfast. Promising. Sit. Eat. We have approximately 47 things to accomplish before noon." Isabella sat accepting tea from a footman. 47 seems excessive. "I'm rounding down." Helena set aside her newspaper. "First, the modiste will arrive at 8. You'll need a complete wardrobe. Morning dresses, afternoon dresses, evening gowns, walking costumes, riding habits." "I don't ride." "You do now. The Duchess of Thornwick rides, therefore you ride." Helena consulted a small notebook. "After the modiste, a dancing master. Your curtsy was abysmal last night." "I know how to curtsy." "You know how a music teacher curtsies. You need to learn how a future duchess curtsies. There's a difference." Helena turned a page. "Then elocution lessons, deportment, an introduction to the household staff, and a complete briefing on Alexander's family history going back 4 generations." Isabella's head was spinning. "That's impossible to do in one day." "Which is why we're starting at 6:30. Helena smiled.
Drink your tea, dear. You're going to need it. The door opened. Alexander entered, looking irritatingly well-rested. Mother, I should have known you'd be here at an ungodly hour. It's hardly ungodly.
The servants have been awake for hours. Helena gestured to a chair. Sit. We need to discuss the engagement announcement. What about it? The papers will publish it today. We need to ensure the story is consistent. Helena pulled out another notebook. Alexander, you proposed in the garden at the Ashworth ball. Isabella, you were overcome with emotion and accepted immediately. You've been courting privately for 6 weeks. 6 weeks? Isabella frowned. That's not very long. It's long enough to be plausible, but short enough to explain why no one's heard about it. Helena looked at Alexander. Where did you first meet? The Thornton Musicale, Alexander said without hesitation. She played Chopin. I was captivated. Good. Isabella, what attracted you to Alexander? Isabella looked at him across the table. His complete lack of interest in me, apparently. Alexander nearly choked on his coffee. Helena, however, looked delighted. Perfect. A challenge. Men love that narrative. He didn't notice me at first, but gradually I wore down his defenses. Very romantic. It's complete fiction, Isabella said. All the best romances are. Moving on, the engagement party will be next week. Guest list of approximately 200. 200? Isabella's voice rose. I can't possibly. You can and you will. These people need to see you and Alexander together, visibly affectionate, completely committed. Helena fixed Isabella with a sharp look. Can you manage that? I don't know. Can I? Isabella turned to Alexander. We barely know each other. Then you'd better learn quickly, he said coolly, because Mother's right. If we can't sell this convincingly, the entire arrangement falls apart. Perhaps you two should spend the day together, Helena suggested. Build rapport, learn each other's habits. I have meetings, Alexander started. Cancel them. Your fiancée takes priority, at least publicly. Helena stood. I'll handle the modiste. You two go do something couples do. Walk in the garden, have a conversation, hold hands if you're feeling adventurous. She swept out, leaving them alone. Alexander stared at his coffee. Isabella stared at her tea. This is absurd, she said finally. Agreed. He stood. But she's not wrong. If we can't even have a conversation without looking uncomfortable, no one will believe we're engaged. So, what do you suggest? Walk with me. We'll talk. Get to know each other enough that we don't look like strangers in public. Isabella followed him through the house and out into the garden. Morning sunlight filtered through trees, birds sang, and it should have been peaceful, except for the tension radiating off both of them. Tell me about yourself, Alexander said abruptly. You already know the important parts. Destitute, desperate, willing to lie for money. I know the circumstances. I don't know you. He stopped walking, turning to face her. If we're going to spend 6 months pretending to be in love, I should probably know more than your financial situation. Isabella took a breath. What do you want to know? Anything. Everything. Start with something simple. Favorite color? Blue. The color of the ocean on clear days. She paused. Yours? Green, like forests after rain. Favorite book? Pride and Prejudice, which makes me a cliché, I know. It makes you human. Alexander's expression softened slightly. Favorite music? Chopin, obviously, since that's what your mother claims captivated you. Play for me sometime. I want to actually hear what supposedly made me fall in love with you. The request caught her off guard. You want me to play? I have a piano. You're a pianist. Seems logical. He started walking again. Tell me about your mother. The question hit harder than Isabella expected. What about her? You're doing this to save her. I should know what she's like. Isabella's throat tightened.
She's kind, patient. She taught me to play piano when I was 5. After my father died, she never complained, never blamed him for the debts he left. She just kept going, kept trying to make things work. And now she's dying. Yes. What will you tell her about this arrangement? Isabella hadn't thought about that. I don't know. The truth would horrify her. Then lie. Tell her we met, fell in love, and I'm taking care of her medical expenses because I adore you. Alexander's tone was matter-of-fact. It's kinder than the truth. You're very comfortable with lying. I'm a duke. My entire life is performing expected roles. He glanced at her. The only difference is, I usually don't get paid for it. Before Isabella could respond, a commotion erupted from the house. Shouting, something crashing. They ran back inside to find Helena in the entrance hall facing down a red-faced man in his 50s. No right to keep me from seeing him. Lord Edmund, Helena said icily, you will lower your voice in my house or you will leave. Your house? This is Alexander's house and I'm his oldest friend. I have every right. What's going on? Alexander demanded. Edmund spun toward him. What's going on? I'll tell you what's going on. I heard the most ridiculous rumor that you're engaged, and I came here to confirm it was nonsense only to have your mother tell me it's true. Please tell me you haven't actually lost your mind. Edmund. To some nobody. Some music teacher, Alexander. For God's sake, you can't be serious. Careful. Alexander's voice went dangerously quiet. You're speaking about my fiancée. Edmund's eyes found Isabella. His expression turned contemptuous. This is her. This is the woman you're supposedly marrying. Yes. Absolutely not. I refuse to believe it. Edmund moved closer to Isabella, looking her up and down like she was livestock. What's your game? How much is she paying you? Excuse me, Isabella said. Don't play innocent. Everyone knows the Weatherstone family is destitute. You latched onto Alexander because you need money, didn't you? Lord Edmund. Helena warned, you're crossing a line. I'm protecting my friend from making a catastrophic mistake. Edmund turned back to Alexander. Send her away, now, before this farce goes any further. Get out, Alexander said quietly. Edmund blinked. What? Get out of my house. You've insulted my fiancée, questioned my judgment and behaved like an ass. Leave. Alexander, I'm trying to help. By insulting the woman I love. The lie came smoothly, convincingly. By suggesting she's a gold digger, that's your idea of help. You don't love her. You can't possibly. Why? Because she's not wealthy, because she's not from the right family. Alexander moved to stand beside Isabella, close enough that their shoulders touched. Or because she's actually intelligent and accomplished instead of vapid and boring. Edmund's face went purple. You're making a mistake. That's my choice to make. Now leave, before I have you thrown out. Edmund looked between them, then stormed toward the door. He paused at the threshold. When this blows up in your face, don't come crying to me. The door slammed behind him. Silence filled the entrance hall. Well, Helena said brightly, that went better than expected. Better. Isabella's hands were shaking. He basically called me a whore. He called you a gold digger. There's a difference. Helena patted her arm. Don't worry, dear. Edmund's always been overprotective of Alexander. He'll come around. Will he? Alexander's jaw was tight, because that felt rather final. He'll cool down and realize he overreacted. Give him a week. Helena checked her watch. The modiste will be here shortly. Isabella, go change into something presentable. Alexander, you should probably write Edmund a letter explaining your position before he spreads malicious gossip all over London. They both moved to obey, then stopped. Did we just follow her orders without question? Isabella asked. Apparently. Alexander sighed. She's terrifyingly effective, isn't she? Terrifying is the right word. Back in her suite, Isabella found the maid Annie. She finally remembered waiting with a dress that was marginally less shabby than the others. Let me help you, miss. 20 minutes later, Isabella was as presentable as possible, given her limited wardrobe. She returned downstairs to find the modiste had arrived, a sharp-eyed Frenchwoman named Madame Dubois, who took one look at Isabella and actually gasped. Mon Dieu, we have much work to do. Helena smiled. I told you it was urgent. Urgent? This is catastrophe. Madame Dubois circled Isabella like a predator. The fabric, the cut, the stitching, all terrible. How long do I have? The engagement party is in 1 week. 1 week impossible. I need at least 2. 1 week, madame, and I will pay triple your usual fee. Madame Dubois' eyes gleamed. Triple, plus a bonus if everything is perfect. Very well, we begin now. She snapped her fingers, and assistants appeared with measuring tape, fabric samples, and sketches. Take off the dress. Right here. Isabella looked around the drawing room. I have seen thousands of women in their undergarments. You are not special. Remove the dress. Isabella looked at Helena, who nodded. Resigned, she let Annie help her out of the dress. The next 3 hours were torture. Madame Dubois measured every inch of her body while firing questions about preferences, occasions, and style. Her assistants draped fabric-pinned samples, made notes. The ball gown will be emerald silk, Madame Dubois declared, to match the Duke's eyes. I haven't noticed his eye color, Isabella lied. Then you are blind or stupid? Probably both. Madame Dubois pinned another piece of fabric. The afternoon dresses will be lighter colors, blue, lavender, rose. The morning dress is practical but elegant, and for riding a deep burgundy habit. I told you I don't ride. You will learn. All duchesses ride. Madame Dubois stepped back, examining her work. You have potential. Good bones, decent posture when you remember not to slouch. The wardrobe will help, but you must also carry yourself properly. I know how to carry myself. You know how a music teacher carries herself, shoulders back, chin up. Look people in the eye, but don't stare, and for God's sake, stop fidgeting. Isabella's hands stilled. She hadn't realized she was fidgeting. Helena appeared in the doorway. How are we progressing? She is disaster, but fixable disaster. Madame Dubois made another note. First delivery will be tomorrow morning. The ball gown in 5 days. Excellent. Helena turned to Isabella. You're done here. The dancing master is waiting in the ballroom. Isabella wanted to argue, to say she was exhausted and overwhelmed and needed a break. But one look at Helena's expression told her that wasn't an option. The dancing master, Monsieur Laurent, was a tiny man with an enormous personality. Show me your curtsy, he demanded. Isabella curtsied. He looked horrified. Non, non, non. This is peasant curtsy. You must curtsy like Duchess again. Isabella tried again. Worse, you look like dying swan. Grace, Mademoiselle Grace. An hour later, Isabella's legs were trembling from repeated curtsies. Her head ached from maintaining perfect posture, and she was seriously considering murdering Monsieur Laurent with his own violin bow. Better, he finally conceded. Not good, but better. Tomorrow we work on dancing. The Duke will lead you in the first waltz at the engagement party. You must not embarrass him. I know how to waltz. Knowing and performing are different. Tomorrow, 8 o'clock. Do not be late. He swept out, leaving Isabella slumped against the wall. Annie appeared with tea and sympathy. It gets easier, miss. Does it? No, but you get better at pretending it does.
Isabella laughed despite herself. That's depressing. That's life in service to the aristocracy. Annie handed her the tea. Drink this. You've got elocution with Professor Whitmore in 10 minutes. You're joking. I never joke about Professor Whitmore. He's terrifying. Professor Whitmore turned out to be a severe man in his 70s who spent 2 hours correcting Isabella's pronunciation, diction, and vocabulary. A duchess does not say yes. She says certainly, or indeed. She does not say no. She says, I think not, or perhaps another time. He peered at her over spectacles. Do you understand the difference? Yes, I mean certainly, Professor. Better. Now repeat after me. The rain in Spain falls mainly in the plain. By the time Isabella was released, it was past 4 o'clock, and she was ready to collapse. She stumbled into the library, threw herself onto a sofa, and groaned. Rough day. Isabella's head shot up. Alexander sat in a chair by the fireplace, book in hand, looking amused. Your mother is a demon. I'm aware. I've been living with her for 32 years. He set down his book. What did she put you through? Modiste, dancing master elocution professor. I've been measured, corrected, and criticized for 8 straight hours. My feet hurt, my head hurts, and I'm starting to think £5,000 isn't enough compensation for this torture. It isn't, but you signed the contract. He stood moving to a side table where decanters sat. Brandy. Please. He poured 2 glasses, handed her one. Welcome to my world. This is what being aristocracy actually means, endless lessons in being perfect. Isabella took a sip, felt the warmth spread through her chest. How do you stand it? I was born into it. You're adapting to it, much harder. He sat across from her. You'll survive. You're tougher than you look. How do you know? Because you're still here. Most women would have run screaming after the first hour with Madame Dubois. I considered it. But you didn't, because you need the money more than you need comfort. His tone wasn't unkind, just matter of fact. That kind of determination will serve you well. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Edmund came back, Alexander said suddenly. What? This afternoon. Apologized. Said he was wrong to speak to you that way. Did he mean it? Probably not. But he knows the engagement is happening whether he approves or not. Alexander swirled his brandy. He did make one good point, though. What's that? We need a story that holds up under scrutiny. The 6-week courtship is fine for casual acquaintances, but Edmund and other close friends will ask detailed questions. We need answers that match. Isabella's stomach sank. You're right. So let's create them. Now. While we have time. He pulled out a notebook. Where did we first speak? Not just see each other actually speak. At the musicale, you approached me after I played. What did I say? You asked if I'd consider teaching your younger cousin. She's struggling with piano. Do I have a younger cousin? Yes, Lady Charlotte. She's 14 and tone-deaf according to your mother. Alexander laughed. Perfect. I like that detail. Very specific. What did you say? I said I'd be honored. You offered to pay double my usual rate. Did you accept? Not immediately. I said I'd need to meet Charlotte first to assess her skill level. Good. Shows pride. I would have noticed that. He made notes. When did we actually start courting? 3rd lesson. Charlotte was hopeless, but you kept attending anyway. I finally asked why. And I said... Isabella met his eyes. You said you were interested in my opinion on a political matter. The Education Reform Bill. Clever. That's actually true. I'm working on education reform. He wrote it down. So we bonded over politics, and music, and books. You lent me a first edition of Emma. Did I? You did now. Isabella was getting into this. I returned it with a note arguing that Mr. Knightley was insufferably arrogant. Alexander's eyes lit up, and I wrote back defending him, which started a correspondence. Exactly. 6 weeks of letters debating literature and politics. Until I finally asked to court you officially. No. Until I asked why you hadn't kissed me yet. Alexander choked on his brandy. You what? It's shocking, which makes it memorable. Plus, it fits your mother's narrative about me being a challenge. Isabella smiled. You were too proper. I got frustrated and asked directly, and what did I do? You kissed me in the music room, then proposed 3 days later. 3 days. You're impulsive when you want something. Everyone knows that about you. He stared at her. How do you know that about me? Your mother told me. This morning. During the 47 Things briefing. Of course she did. Alexander finished writing. This is good. Detailed enough to be convincing, romantic enough to satisfy gossips. There's one problem. What? We've never actually kissed. If we're supposedly engaged after a passionate courtship, we should probably know what that's like, in case we have to do it in public. The silence stretched. You're suggesting we kiss, Alexander said carefully. I'm suggesting we practice, so it doesn't look completely awkward if the situation requires it. Isabella's heart was racing, but she kept her voice steady. This is business. Remember, we should be prepared.
That's very practical of you.
I'm a very practical person. Alexander set down his glass and stood, moved closer until he was standing right in front of her. This is purely professional, he said. Purely professional, she agreed. He leaned down. Isabella's breath caught. Their lips met. It was soft, tentative, nothing like the passionate embrace their fabricated story suggested. But something sparked anyway, unexpected, unwanted, undeniable. Alexander pulled back, eyes dark. That was professional, Isabella finished quickly. Right. Professional. He stepped back. We should probably practice again to make sure it looks natural. Probably. But neither of them moved. The door opened. Helena swept in, stopping short when she saw them standing close together. Am I interrupting? No, they said simultaneously, jumping apart. Helena's smile was knowing. Of course not. I just came to inform you that dinner is served. Also, Isabella, your mother sent a message. She's been moved to a private hospital. The best doctors in London are seeing her tomorrow. Isabella's eyes filled with tears. Already. I don't waste time, dear. She'll receive excellent care and you can visit her tomorrow afternoon. Helena turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and children. If you're going to practice kissing for authenticity, at least close the door. The servants are gossiping. She left them both blushing. Did she just, Isabella started, encourage us to kiss? Yes. My mother is shameless. Alexander offered his arm. Shall we go to dinner and pretend that didn't just happen? Gladly. They made it through dinner with surprising ease, actually talking about books and politics like real people instead of strangers playing a role. Helena watched them with satisfaction, saying nothing, but clearly pleased. After dinner, Isabella excused herself to write a letter to her mother. She sat in her sweet pen in hand, trying to find words for an impossible lie. Dearest Mamma, I have the most wonderful news. She wrote about meeting Alexander, about falling in love, about the engagement. Every word was a lie, but they were kind lies. Lies that would let her mother rest easy knowing Isabella was taken care of. A knock interrupted her writing. "Come in." Alexander entered carrying a wrapped package. "This arrived for you. From the modiste." Isabella unwrapped it to find a beautiful nightgown and dressing gown, cream silk with delicate embroidery. "She works fast," Isabella said. "Mother pays her enough to work miracles." He hesitated at the door. "About earlier. The kiss." "We don't need to discuss it." "I think we do. Because it wasn't entirely professional, was it?" Isabella's heart hammered. "It was nothing, just nerves." "Right, nerves." But his expression said he didn't believe it either. "Get some rest. Tomorrow will be worse than today."
How is that possible? You're meeting the extended family. Trust me, it's worse. He left. Isabella changed into the new nightgown, climbed into bed, and lay awake thinking about kisses that were supposed to mean nothing but felt like something. This was dangerous territory. She couldn't afford to develop real feelings for Alexander. This was business. Temporary. Fake. But her lips still tingled from the kiss. And that terrified her more than anything else. The nightmare pulled Isabella from sleep at 3 a.m. She sat up, gasping, heart racing, her mother's pale face still vivid behind her eyes. A knock startled her. "Isabella?" Alexander's voice muffled through the door. "Are you all right? I heard you cry out." She stumbled to the door, opened it. He stood in the hallway wearing a dressing gown, hair disheveled, concern evident on his face. "Bad dream," she managed. "About my mother dying. Me not getting there in time because I was too busy pretending to be someone I'm not." Alexander's expression softened. "She's getting the best care available. The doctors Helena hired are the finest in England." "I know. Logically I know. But logic doesn't stop the nightmares." Isabella wrapped her arms around herself. "I'm sorry I woke you." "You didn't. I couldn't sleep either." He hesitated. "Would you like some tea?" "The kitchen staff won't mind." "At 3 a.m. We're the Duke and his fiancée. We could demand a full banquet at 3 a.m. and they'd provide it." Despite everything, Isabella smiled. "Tea sounds perfect." They made their way downstairs in silence, through darkened hallways, lit only by scattered lamps. The kitchen was warm, the massive hearth still glowing with banked coals. Alexander moved with surprising competence, finding teacups honey. "I spent a lot of time in here as a child. Cook used to sneak me biscuits when Mother wasn't looking." "Did your mother frighten you too?" "Terrify me. Still does, honestly." He poured hot water. "But I learned early that showing fear only encouraged her. She respects strength." "Is that why you agreed to this arrangement, to prove you're strong enough to defy her manipulation?" Alexander was quiet for a long moment. "I agreed because the alternative was genuinely worse. Vivian Harrington is not just unpleasant. She's dangerous." "Dangerous how?" "She destroys people for sport. Last season, a young woman rejected Vivian's brother. Within a month, rumors had spread that the woman was having an affair with her father's business partner. Complete fabrication. The woman's engagement was broken, her reputation ruined, her family ostracized. She ended up marrying a man 3 times her age just to escape the scandal." Isabella's stomach turned. "That's monstrous. That's Vivian. And the Queen wants me to marry her because Vivian's father controls half the trade routes to India." He handed Isabella her tea. "Politics, money, power. The usual aristocratic nonsense. So you're using me to avoid marrying a monster. I'm giving us both what we need. You get money, I get freedom, everyone wins. Except we're building it on lies.
All marriages are built on lies to some degree. At least ours is honest about being dishonest." He raised his cup. "To mutually beneficial deception." Isabella clinked her cup against his. "You're very cynical about marriage." "My father married for love, spent 20 years miserable because love wasn't enough to bridge their fundamental incompatibility. He died disappointed and angry." Alexander's voice was flat. "I'd rather have a clean business arrangement than messy emotions." "Is that why you've never married?" "That's why I'll never marry for real. This charade ends in 6 months and I go back to comfortable solitude."
He met her eyes. "You should understand that. Whatever happens between now and then, it ends cleanly." The words stung more than they should have. "I understand." "Do you?" "Because that kiss yesterday meant nothing. You said so yourself." "I said it was professional. I didn't say it meant nothing." Isabella's breath caught. "Alexander." "I'm not good at this," he interrupted, "at pretending I don't feel things. So I need you to understand. I like you. You're clever and brave and you don't take my nonsense seriously. Under different circumstances, I might actually want this to be real. But these aren't different circumstances. No, they're not. And in 6 months, you'll leave with your money, and I'll return to my perfectly ordered life where no one challenges me or makes me question anything. Is that really what you want?" He didn't answer. Just stood, rinsed his cup, and moved toward the door. "Get some sleep. The family arrives at noon, and they're going to interrogate you mercilessly. Alexander, good night, Isabella." He was gone before she could respond. Isabella sat alone in the kitchen, holding her cooling tea, wondering what had just happened. He'd admitted to having feelings, then immediately built walls around them. It was infuriating and heartbreaking in equal measure. She finally went back to bed, but sleep didn't come. Morning arrived too quickly. Annie woke her at 7 with news that Madame Dubois had delivered the first batch of dresses. 3 day dresses, 2 morning dresses, and a walking costume, miss, all beautiful. Isabella let Annie help her into a pale blue morning dress that actually fit properly. Looking in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The dress was elegant, perfectly tailored, expensive. She looked like someone who belonged here. The lie was becoming uncomfortably convincing. Helena appeared at breakfast with a list. "Alexander's family will arrive at noon. You'll meet them in the drawing room. His Aunt Cordelia will ask inappropriate questions. His Uncle Robert will pretend you don't exist. His cousin Margaret will size you up as competition. And his grandmother will either love you or destroy you. There's no middle ground with Lady Thornwick." "That's terrifying." "That's family." Helena consulted her notes. "Remember, you're confident, accomplished, and deeply in love with Alexander. Don't apologize for being yourself. Cordelia will see it as weakness." Alexander joined them, looking tired. Their eyes met briefly before he looked away. "Ready for the Inquisition?" he asked. "Not remotely." "Good. Honesty. They'll appreciate that more than false confidence." The morning passed in a blur of final preparations. Monsieur Laurent arrived to drill Isabella on her curtsy one more time. Professor Whitmore tested her elocution. Madame Dubois appeared to make minor adjustments to the dresses. At precisely noon, carriages began arriving. Isabella stood in the drawing room beside Alexander, hands trembling as the family filed in. Aunt Cordelia arrived first, a formidable woman in her 60s, wearing purple silk and disapproval. She looked Isabella up and down with open skepticism. "So this is the music teacher. This is my fiancée," Alexander corrected smoothly.
Lady Isabella Hartford. Hartford. Any relation to the Hampshire Hartfords? My father's family. Yes. Didn't they lose everything? Bad investments? Isabella felt her cheeks burn. My father made some unfortunate financial decisions. Yes. Unfortunate. What a polite way of saying catastrophic. Cordelia settled onto a sofa. And now you're marrying my nephew. How convenient. Aunt Cordelia. Alexander's voice held warning. I'm simply being practical, darling. One must consider these things. Uncle Robert entered next, barely acknowledging Isabella before demanding whiskey. His wife, a mousy woman named Beatrice, offered a timid smile. Cousin Margaret swept in, wearing an elaborate yellow dress that clashed horribly with her complexion. She looked Isabella over with barely concealed hostility. I didn't know Alexander was courting anyone. We kept it private, Isabella said. How very secretive. One might wonder why. One might mind their own business, Alexander said coldly. Margaret's eyes narrowed. I'm family. Your business is my business. Not any more it isn't. The tension was thick enough to cut when the final carriage arrived. Lady Thornwick, the family matriarch, was 90 if she was a day. She entered with a cane, moving slowly but with absolute authority. Everyone fell silent. She fixed Isabella with pale blue eyes that missed nothing. So, you're the girl? Yes, your ladyship. Come here. Let me see you properly. Isabella approached, aware of everyone watching. Lady Thornwick studied her face, her posture, her hands.
Play something, the old woman commanded. I beg your pardon? The piano? There. Lady Thornwick pointed to an instrument in the corner. They say you're accomplished. Prove it. Isabella's heart raced. This was a test. Everyone in the room knew it. She moved to the piano, sat, took a breath. Her fingers found the keys. She played Chopin, the same piece she'd supposedly played when Alexander first saw her. Let the music speak for itself, passionate, technically perfect, emotionally raw. When she finished, silence filled the room. Well, Lady Thornwick said finally, at least you're not a complete fraud. Grandmother, Alexander started. Quiet, I'm not finished. The old woman turned back to Isabella. You play beautifully, but can you manage a household, navigate society, handle the responsibilities of being a duchess? I'm learning. Learning? At 26. Most girls learn these things from childhood. Most girls weren't required to earn their own living. Lady Thornwick's eyebrows rose. Bold. I appreciate boldness, stupidity less so. Which are you? I suppose you'll have to decide that for yourself, your ladyship. A smile ghosted across the old woman's face. Helena chose well. This one has spine. She turned to Alexander. You could do worse. High praise from you, grandmother. Don't let it go to your head. She's still a music teacher with no fortune and questionable connections. Lady Thornwick fixed Isabella with another sharp look. But she plays Chopin like she's lived through heartbreak. That kind of depth is rare. Isabella didn't know whether to feel complimented or insulted. The family stayed for lunch, which was awkward and tense. Cordelia asked pointed questions about Isabella's family. Margaret made snide comments about social climbing. Robert drank steadily and ignored everyone. Only Lady Thornwick seemed genuinely interested, asking about Isabella's education, her musical training, her opinions on current politics. You support the education reform bill? The old woman asked. I do. Education shouldn't be limited to those who can afford it. Spoken like someone who's experienced poverty. I have. It gives me perspective others in this room lack. Margaret gasped. Cordelia looked scandalized.
Lady Thornwick laughed. "Oh, I like you. You don't pretend to be something you're not. Refreshing." After lunch, as the family prepared to leave, Lady Thornwick pulled Isabella aside. "A word of advice, girl. This family eats weakness for breakfast. Show them any vulnerability and they'll destroy you, but strength—" She smiled. "Strength they respect, even if they don't like you." "Thank you, your ladyship." "Don't thank me yet. They're going to make your life hell for the next 6 months. The question is whether you're strong enough to survive it." The old woman left, leaving Isabella shaken. Alexander found her in the library afterward, collapsed in a chair. "That was brutal," he said. "Your family is terrifying. They're not my family. They're relatives I'm forced to tolerate." He poured them both brandy. "But you handled it well. Grandmother likes you. That's something. Your cousin hates me. Margaret hates everyone. Don't take it personally." Isabella accepted the brandy gratefully. "When does it get easier?" "Never. You just get better at pretending it doesn't hurt." They sat in silence, exhausted from maintaining appearances. "I need to visit my mother tomorrow," Isabella said. "Helena said she's at the hospital." "I'll take you." "You don't have to." "Isabella, I'm your fiancée, publicly at least. It would look strange if I didn't accompany you to visit your sick mother." He was right, of course. Everything was about appearances now. The next morning they took Alexander's carriage to the hospital. Isabella's nerves increased with every block they travelled. "What if she sees through the lie?" she asked. "Then you tell her the truth." "That would break her heart." "Letting her die believing you're alone would break it worse." Alexander took her hand. "We'll convince her. Together." The gesture surprised her. His hand was warm, solid anchoring. At the hospital, a nurse led them to a private room. Isabella's mother lay in bed, looking fragile, but better than she had in weeks. Colour had returned to her cheeks. Her breathing seemed easier. "Isabella." Her mother's face lit up. "Oh, my darling girl, come here." Isabella rushed to embrace her, tears streaming. "Mamma, you look so much better." "These doctors are miracle workers. I don't understand how you afforded—" Her mother stopped, seeing Alexander in the doorway. "Oh, who's this?" Isabella took a breath. "Mamma, this is Alexander Blackwood, Duke of Thornwick, my fiancé." Her mother's eyes went wide. "Your what?" Alexander moved forward, bowing slightly. "Mrs. Hartford, it's an honor to finally meet you. Isabella speaks of you constantly." "Fiancée Isabella, what, how?" "We met at a musicale several weeks ago," Isabella said, hating the lies but needing her mother to believe them. "He approached me after I played. We started courting privately and he proposed 3 days ago." 3 days ago. Her mother looked between them. "This is very sudden." "When you know, you know," Alexander said smoothly. "Your daughter is extraordinary, Mrs. Hartford. Talented, intelligent, kind. I knew immediately I wanted to marry her." "But Isabella, you never mentioned—" "I didn't want to worry you." Isabella interrupted. "With your health so precarious, I thought it best to wait until things were certain." Her mother's eyes filled with tears. "Oh, my darling, you've been so worried about me, and all this time you were falling in love. Come here." She pulled Isabella close, whispering in her ear, "He's handsome. Does he treat you well?" "Very well, Mamma." "And the medical expenses, is he—" "He insisted on the best care for you. He wouldn't hear of anything less." Her mother pulled back, looking at Alexander with gratitude. "Your Grace, I don't know how to thank you." "There's no need for thanks. Isabella is to be my wife. Her family is my family." He moved closer, taking Mrs. Hartford's hand gently. "I promise I'll take care of her. Always."
The sincerity in his voice nearly broke Isabella. He sounded like he meant it. Her mother smiled through tears. Then I can rest easy, knowing she'll be happy and cared for. They stayed for an hour, Isabella telling carefully edited stories about the engagement, Alexander charming her mother with surprising ease. He asked about Isabella's childhood, her first piano recital, funny family stories. When they finally left, Isabella was emotionally wrung out. In the carriage, she turned to Alexander. "Thank you. You didn't have to be so kind to her." "She's dying. The least I can do is give her peace about your future." "You're good at this, lying convincingly. Years of practice. Being a duke requires constant performance." He looked out the window. "Though with your mother it didn't feel like lying." "What do you mean?" "I meant what I said. I will take care of you for the next 6 months at least. That's what the contract guarantees." "Right. The contract." The reminder felt like cold water. This was business. Temporary. She needed to stop forgetting that. They returned to Thornwick House to find chaos. Helena was shouting at servants while Madame Dubois wrung her hands. "What's wrong?" Alexander demanded. "The ball gown," Helena said. "For the engagement party. The silk shipment was delayed. It won't be finished in time. The party is in 4 days. I'm aware." "Madame Dubois says she can make it work with a different fabric, but it won't be as spectacular." Alexander turned to the modiste. "Can you do it?" "Oui, but it will not be my best work. The emerald silk was perfect. This substitute—" She made a dismissive gesture. "Make it work, whatever it takes." Alexander's voice was firm. "Isabella will look perfect at that party. I don't care what it costs." Madame Dubois nodded and hurried away to work. Helena sighed. Crisis averted. Barely. "Is the entire engagement party going to be like this?" Isabella asked. "Worse. Wait until you meet the flower vendor who insists on only using orchids grown in moonlight or some nonsense." Helena checked her watch. "Speaking of which, you have a meeting with the party planner in 10 minutes. Alexander, you need to review the guest list and approve the seating arrangements." They scattered to their respective tasks. The next 3 days were a blur of preparations. Isabella met with the party planner, a terrifyingly efficient woman named Mrs. Pemberton, who had opinions on everything from napkin folding to the exact shade of ribbon for the decorations. "Your opinion, Miss Hartford." Mrs. Pemberton held up 2 nearly identical fabric samples. "They look the same to me." Mrs. Pemberton looked horrified. "One is champagne, the other is cream. Completely different." "Then champagne, I suppose?" "Excellent choice. Now about the floral arrangements." Isabella also endured more lessons with Monsieur Laurent, who insisted she perfect the waltz because the entire ballroom will be watching your first dance. "No pressure, then," Isabella muttered. "Pressure makes diamonds, mademoiselle. Now, again." The night before the party, Isabella couldn't sleep. She stood on her balcony, looking at the garden, trying to calm her racing thoughts. A sound made her turn. Alexander stood in his own balcony 2 doors down, also unable to sleep. "Nervous," he called softly. "Terrified." "Good. I'd worry if you weren't." "Are you nervous?" "Absolutely. 200 people watching us perform happiness. What could go wrong?" Despite herself, Isabella smiled. "Everything, probably." He was quiet for a moment. "But we'll face it together. That's something." "Alexander, that thing you said at the hospital, about taking care of me. Did you mean it?" "I meant it for the duration of our arrangement, yes. Only for 6 months. That's what we agreed." Isabella nodded throat tight. "Right, what we agreed. Isabella, Good night, Alexander. Big day tomorrow. She went inside before he could see the tears. The morning of the engagement party, Isabella woke to organized chaos. Servants rushed through the house making final preparations. Flowers arrived by the cartload. Musicians set up in the ballroom. Cooks prepared a feast. Madame Dubois appeared at 8 with the finished ball gown.
I have done the impossible, she announced dramatically. Look!
The dress was breathtaking. Deep sapphire blue instead of emerald with silver embroidery that caught the light like starlight. The neckline was elegant but modest. The waist perfectly fitted the skirt flowing like water. It's beautiful, Isabella breathed. It is acceptable. The emerald would have been perfection. But this will suffice. Madame Dubois helped her into the dress, making minor adjustments. You look like a duchess. I feel like a fraud. Same thing all duchesses are pretending. The modiste stepped back. There, you will captivate them all. Annie spent 2 hours arranging Isabella's hair, weaving in sapphire pins that matched the dress. By the time she was finished, Isabella barely recognized her reflection. She looked every inch the future Duchess of Thornwick. The transformation was complete. At 7 o'clock, guests began arriving. Isabella stood beside Alexander at the top of the grand staircase, her hand on his arm, smiling until her face hurt. You look stunning, he murmured. You're required to say that. I'm required to be polite. I'm not required to mean it, but I do. Their eyes met, and Isabella felt that dangerous spark again. Then the announcements began, and there was no more time to think. Lady Vivian Harrington arrived in white, a deliberate insult, wearing bridal white to someone else's engagement party. She looked Isabella up and down with pure venom. How quaint, playing dress-up in the Duke's money. Careful, Vivian, Alexander said coldly. You're addressing my fiancée. Am I, or am I addressing a very convincing actress? Vivian smiled sharply. Enjoy your little performance, Miss Hartford. But remember, all performances end eventually. She swept past, leaving the threat hanging in the air. She knows something, Isabella whispered. She suspects. That's different from knowing. Alexander's grip on her hand tightened. Ignore her. We have 200 other guests to charm. They descended into the ballroom and the real performance began. The orchestra struck up the first waltz, and every eye in the ballroom turned to watch Alexander lead Isabella onto the dance floor. Remember what Monsieur Laurent taught you? Alexander murmured, his hand settling at her waist. Right now, I can't remember my own name. Then just follow my lead. They began to move, and somehow Isabella's body remembered what her panicked mind had forgotten. Step, turn, glide. Alexander guided her effortlessly, making her look graceful, even as her heart hammered against her ribs. You're doing beautifully, he said quietly. I'm terrified I'll trip and humiliate us both. You won't. Trust me. The music swelled and they spun faster. Isabella caught glimpses of faces watching them, Helena beaming with satisfaction, Vivienne glaring with barely concealed rage, Lady Thornwick nodding approval. They're all judging us, Isabella whispered. Let them. We're giving them exactly what they want to see, a besotted couple, completely in love. Are we that convincing? Alexander's eyes met hers. I think we might be. The waltz ended to polite applause. Other couples flooded the dance floor, and Isabella thought she might finally breathe. Then Lord Edmund appeared, cutting through the crowd with determined purpose. Your Grace, might I have a word? Privately? Alexander's jaw tightened. Edmund, not now. It's rather urgent. Then it can wait until after the party. I don't think it can.
Edmund's expression was grim. It concerns your fiancée. Isabella's stomach dropped. Alexander's hand found hers, squeezing once. Very well. The study. 5 minutes. He turned to Isabella. I'll be right back.
Alexander, what's...
It's nothing. Edmund being dramatic as usual. But his eyes said otherwise. He left with Edmund, leaving Isabella standing alone in the middle of the ballroom. Helena materialized at her elbow instantly. What was that about? I don't know. Edmund wanted to speak privately. Helena's expression darkened. That man is going to be a problem. Come, you need to circulate. Standing alone makes you look abandoned. For the next 20 minutes, Helena paraded Isabella around the ballroom, introducing her to an endless stream of lords and ladies whose names Isabella immediately forgot. Everyone was polite to her face, and probably vicious behind her back. Lady Hartford, a saccharine voice called. Vivienne surrounded by 3 other young women who looked equally predatory. How lovely you look. New dress. Yes, thank you. Must be wonderful having access to the Duke's fortune. I imagine that was quite the draw. The other women tittered.
I didn't accept Alexander's proposal for his money, Isabella said evenly.
Of course not. You accepted because you're so desperately in love. Vivian's smile was sharp as glass. Tell me, when exactly did this whirlwind romance begin? Because I saw the Duke just 6 weeks ago, and he mentioned nothing about courting anyone. We kept it private. How very convenient. Private enough that none of his closest friends knew anything about it. Some men value discretion. Or some women value keeping secrets. Vivian leaned closer. I wonder what other secrets you're keeping, Miss Hartford. Or should I ask around? I'm sure someone remembers you. The music teacher who got dismissed for inappropriate behavior with a student. Isabella's blood ran cold. That's a lie. Is it because Lady Ashworth told me all about it? How her son proposed and you rejected him so cruelly that she had no choice but to terminate your employment?
What kind of woman rejects a genuine proposal only to accept one from a duke weeks later? It makes one wonder about your true motivations. The other women were watching avidly, clearly delighted by the confrontation. Lady Vivian, Isabella said, keeping her voice steady despite her racing heart. I understand you're disappointed that Alexander chose me instead of you, but inventing malicious gossip won't change that fact. Vivian's face flushed scarlet. How dare you! Ladies, how lovely to see you all together. Lady Thornwick appeared, leaning on her cane, eyes sharp. Vivian, dear, that shade of white makes you look rather peaked. Perhaps you should sit down before you faint. I'm perfectly fine, your ladyship. Are you... You seem rather agitated. Must be difficult attending the engagement party of the man you hope to marry. Lady Thornwick smiled pleasantly. But that's the risk of being too obvious in one's ambitions. Men do hate being hunted. The insult landed perfectly. Vivian looked like she might actually explode. If you'll excuse me, she said through gritted teeth, and stalked away, her entourage scurrying after her. Lady Thornwick turned to Isabella. You handled that well. Didn't show weakness even when she went for the throat. Good. She knows about Lady Ashworth. Of course she does. Vivian makes it her business to know everyone's secrets. The question is whether she can weaponize yours effectively. The old woman studied Isabella. Can she? The truth is, I rejected Thomas Ashworth because I didn't love him. His mother was humiliated and fired me. That's all. And 6 weeks later you're engaged to a duke. The timing is suspicious. I know how it looks. I don't care how it looks. I care whether you're going to survive the scrutiny, because Vivian won't stop with petty remarks. She'll dig deeper, find everything, and use it to destroy you if she can. Then I'll have to ensure she can't."
Lady Thornwick's smile was approving. "Backbone. I like that. Alexander chose well, even if he doesn't realize it yet." Before Isabella could respond to that cryptic statement, Alexander reappeared, his expression thunderous. "Grandmother, might I borrow my fiancée?" "Of course, dear. Though you look like you're about to murder someone." The thought crossed my mind. He took Isabella's arm, guiding her toward the terrace. "We need to talk." Outside, away from prying eyes, Alexander's composure cracked. "Edmund has been investigating you." Isabella's heart stopped. "What?" "Apparently he's been suspicious since the engagement was announced. He hired someone to look into your background." Alexander's hands clenched. "He knows about the debts, about your mother's illness, about Lady Ashworth firing you." "Does he know about the contract?" "Not yet. But he's close. He suspects this is a business arrangement, and he's determined to prove it." "What did you tell him?" "That he's my friend, but if he doesn't back off, he won't be any more." Alexander ran a hand through his hair. "But he's not going to stop, Isabella. He thinks he's protecting me. From me. From making a mistake. He doesn't understand that I know exactly what I'm doing." "Do you—" The words escaped before Isabella could stop them. "Because lately, I'm not sure either of us knows what we're doing." Alexander turned to face her fully. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means this was supposed to be simple. Business. Pretend for 6 months and walk away. But it's getting complicated. Because you kissed me. Because we kissed each other. Because you look at me sometimes like you're forgetting this is fake. Because I—" She stopped, horrified at what she'd almost admitted. "Because you— what?" "Nothing. Forget it." Isabella moved toward the door. "We should get back. People will talk." "Let them talk." Alexander caught her wrist. "Finish what you were saying." "Why?" "So you can remind me this ends in 6 months, that you'll return to your comfortable solitude and I'll disappear with my money." Isabella's voice cracked. "I know the terms, Alexander. You've made them very clear." "Have I? Because right now I'm not sure I remember them anymore." They stood inches apart, tension crackling between them like lightning. "Your Grace." A servant appeared in the doorway. "The toast! They're waiting for you." The moment shattered. Alexander released Isabella's wrist, stepping back. "Of course, we'll be right there." They returned to the ballroom where Helena had assembled everyone for the official toast. Alexander's hand found the small of Isabella's back as they moved through the crowd, a possessive gesture that felt too real to be acting. Champagne glasses appeared. Alexander raised his. "Thank you all for coming tonight to celebrate with us. When I met Isabella 6 weeks ago, I never imagined—" He paused and something flickered in his expression. "I never imagined I'd meet someone who would challenge everything I thought I knew about myself, who would make me question my carefully ordered life and wonder if perhaps there's more to existence than duty and obligation." Isabella's breath caught. That wasn't part of their script. "Isabella," he continued, turning to face her, "you've given me hope that maybe love isn't just a romantic fantasy. Maybe it's real, messy, complicated, and absolutely worth fighting for." The room erupted in applause. Isabella could only stare at him, heart racing, wondering if he meant any of it, or if he was just an exceptionally talented liar. He raised his glass higher. "To my beautiful, brilliant, infuriating fiancée, may our life together be everything we never knew we wanted." They drank. The crowd cheered, and Isabella felt like the floor had disappeared beneath her feet. Helena appeared at her side as guests swarmed to offer congratulations.
That was quite the speech. "He's a good actor." "Is he?" Helena's knowing look made Isabella's stomach flip. "Or is he finally being honest for once in his life?" Before Isabella could respond, Vivian pushed through the crowd. "How touching! Such pretty words." Her smile was venomous. "I wonder if they'll still sound as sweet when the truth comes out." "What truth would that be?" Alexander asked, his tone dangerous. "Oh, I'm sure everyone would be fascinated to learn about Miss Hartford's desperate financial situation. Or perhaps they'd like to hear about how she was fired for inappropriate conduct just weeks before your sudden engagement." Gasps rippled through the crowd. People pulled back slightly, clearly intrigued by the brewing scandal. "Vivian," Alexander said quietly, "I suggest you stop talking. Right now." "Why afraid of what I might reveal? Or are you already aware that your precious fiancé is nothing but a fortune hunter who trapped you into—" "Enough!" Alexander's voice cracked like a whip. The entire ballroom fell silent. "You will not speak about Isabella that way. Not in my house. Not anywhere." "I'm simply telling the truth." "You're spreading malicious gossip because you're bitter I chose her instead of you." Alexander moved closer to Vivian, his voice dropping but carrying nonetheless. "Yes, Isabella's family fell on hard times. Yes, she worked as a music teacher because she has actual talent and accomplishments beyond her bloodline. And yes, I'm paying for her mother's medical care because I love her and her family is my family." Isabella's eyes burned with tears. He was defending her, publicly, completely. "She rejected Thomas Ashworth's proposal because she didn't love him," Alexander continued. "Lady Ashworth retaliated by spreading lies about inappropriate conduct that never happened. Anyone who bothers to investigate will find nothing but a woman who chose honor over financial security." He turned to address the entire ballroom. "My fiancée has more integrity in her smallest finger than most of you have in your entire bodies. She could have married for money years ago. She refused because she has principles. That's why I want to marry her, not despite her poverty, but because of her character." The crowd was riveted. Vivian looked like she'd been slapped. "Now," Alexander said coldly, "I suggest you leave my house before I have you thrown out. You can't. I'm a duke. I can do whatever I want. Guards." 2 footmen appeared instantly. Vivian's face went white with rage and humiliation. "This isn't over," she hissed at Isabella. "Yes," Alexander said. "It is." The guards escorted Vivian out. The ballroom erupted in whispers, some shocked, some delighted by the drama. Helena appeared looking pleased. "Well handled, darling. Very dramatic. People will talk about this for weeks." That was the point. Alexander took Isabella's hand. "Come, let's dance. Give them something else to stare at." On the dance floor, Isabella trembled. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did. She was attacking you." "But the things you said about loving me, about my character, were true. Every word." His eyes held hers. "I do love your character, Isabella. Your strength, your pride, your refusal to compromise yourself even when desperate. Those aren't lies. But we're not in love. That's the lie." Alexander was quiet for a long moment, guiding her through the steps. "Is it?" Isabella's heart stopped. "What?" "I don't know anymore. I thought I knew exactly what this was. Business, temporary, clean. But nothing about this feels clean anymore." "Alexander, we can't. We agreed." "I know what we agreed, and I know it terrifies you as much as it terrifies me." He pulled her closer. "But pretending I don't feel anything stopped working about 3 weeks ago. This is a disaster. Probably.
But it's our disaster. He smiled ruefully. We'll figure it out. Somehow. The dance ended, but they stayed on the floor, neither wanting to let go. A commotion at the entrance interrupted the moment. A messenger pushed through the crowd, looking frantic. Your Grace, there's been an accident. Alexander released Isabella immediately. What kind of accident? At the hospital. There was a fire. They're evacuating all patients. My mother, Isabella gasped. Where is she? Is she safe? I don't know, miss. They sent me to fetch you. Isabella didn't wait. She ran for the entrance, Alexander right behind her. Helena shouted something about the guests, but neither of them cared. In the carriage, Isabella couldn't breathe. She could be dead. She could already be. She's not. We'll get there. She'll be fine. You don't know that. No, but I know panicking won't help her. Alexander gripped her hand tightly. Breathe, Isabella. Just breathe. The hospital was chaos when they arrived. Smoke poured from one wing. Patients were being carried out on stretchers. Nurses ran in every direction shouting orders. Mrs. Hartford! Isabella grabbed a passing nurse. Elizabeth Hartford, where is she? I don't know, I'm sorry. Find out. Now! Alexander's command voice was absolute. I'm the Duke of Thornwick, and I'm paying for that woman's care. Find her immediately. The nurse scurried away. They waited seconds, feeling like hours. Finally, a doctor appeared. Your Grace, Mrs. Hartford is safe. We evacuated her to the East Wing before the fire spread. Relief nearly knocked Isabella to her knees. Can I see her? Of course. Follow me. They found Isabella's mother sitting up in a new bed, looking shaken but unharmed. Isabella! Oh, thank God! I was so worried the fire. Isabella rushed to embrace her. I'm here. You're safe. That's all that matters. But your party doesn't matter. You matter. Isabella pulled back to look at her mother properly. Are you hurt? No, just frightened. The smoke, the chaos. Her mother's eyes filled with tears. If you hadn't paid for this hospital, I'd have been in a public ward. Those patients didn't all make it out. The implication hit Isabella like a hammer. If not for this arrangement for the money, her mother would likely be dead. Alexander moved to Mrs. Hartford's side, taking her hand gently. You're safe now. That's what's important. We'll make sure you're moved to an even better facility tomorrow, somewhere with proper safety measures. You've already done so much, and I'll continue to do so. Your family. He said it so naturally, so easily, that Isabella almost believed he meant it. Her mother smiled through tears. You're a good man, Your Grace. My daughter is very lucky. I'm the lucky one, Alexander replied, and when he looked at Isabella, something in his expression made her chest ache. They stayed until Mrs. Hartford fell asleep, exhausted from the ordeal. Outside the room, Isabella finally let herself fall apart. She almost died because of bad wiring in a hospital that should have been safer. She almost... Sobs choked off the words. Alexander pulled her into his arms without hesitation. But she didn't. She's alive. You saved her. We saved her. This arrangement, the money without it, she'd be gone. Then it was worth it. Every lie, every performance, every complication, worth it. Isabella clung to him, breathing in his scent, feeling his heartbeat against her cheek. For this moment she let herself pretend it was real, that he held her because he wanted to, not because it was part of their contract. We should go back, she said, finally pulling away. Your guests can entertain themselves. I'm not leaving you. Alexander, I'm not leaving you, he repeated firmly. My mother can handle the party. You need me more. The simple declaration broke something in Isabella. This isn't supposed to be happening. I know.
We're supposed to keep it professional. I know. In 6 months, this ends. I know. Alexander cupped her face in his hands. But maybe the contract was wrong. Maybe we were wrong to think we could fake something this big without it becoming real. What are you saying? I'm saying I don't want this to end. I'm saying maybe we should renegotiate. Isabella's heart hammered. For how long? How about forever? The word hung in the air between them, impossible and perfect. You're not thinking clearly, Isabella said, even as hope bloomed painfully in her chest.
The stress, the emotion.
I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years. Alexander's thumb brushed her cheek. I love you, Isabella. Not the performance, not the convenient arrangement. You, the real, stubborn, brilliant, infuriating you. You can't. We barely know each other. I know you take your tea with honey, no milk. I know you read before bed and hate waking up early. I know you're terrified of failing, but more terrified of not trying. I know you cry when you think no one's watching and you're too proud to ask for help, even when you're drowning. His voice softened. I know everything that matters. Alexander, you don't have to say it back, not yet, but I needed you to know. This isn't fake anymore. Not for me. Before Isabella could respond, Helena's voice echoed down the hallway. There you are. The guests are asking questions, and I'm running out of excuses. Oh! She stopped, taking in their proximity. Isabella's tear-stained face, Alexander's protective stance. I see. Should I come back later? No, Isabella said quickly, stepping away from Alexander. We were just the fire. I heard. Is Elizabeth all right? Yes, she's fine. Resting. Helena's sharp eyes moved between them. And you two? Are you all right? We're fine, Alexander said. Liar. But we'll discuss it later. Helena gestured toward the exit. The party's ending. You should make an appearance to thank everyone for coming. Show them you're united and strong despite the drama. She was right. They had a performance to complete. Back at Thornwick House, they found most guests had already left. The remaining few offered sympathetic comments about the fire before departing. Finally alone, Alexander turned to Isabella in the empty ballroom. We should talk about what I said. Not tonight, please. Isabella couldn't handle it, not after everything. I'm exhausted and emotional and I can't think clearly. Tomorrow, then. Tomorrow. But they both knew tomorrow wouldn't make it any easier. Isabella made it to her room before collapsing. Annie helped her out of the beautiful dress, her practice chatter washing over Isabella without registering. When she was finally alone, Isabella lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Alexander loved her, or thought he did. The distinction felt important, but she was too tired to figure out why. This was supposed to be simple. 6 months, £5,000 clean ending. Now it was the messiest thing in her life. And the terrifying part, she wanted the mess, wanted him, wanted this to be real so desperately it physically hurt. But wanting wasn't enough, not when the foundation was built on lies. A soft knock interrupted her spiraling thoughts. Come in. Helena entered surprisingly gentle. How are you holding up? I don't know any more. Fair answer. Helena sat on the edge of the bed. He told you he loves you. It wasn't a question. Yes. Do you love him? Isabella's throat tightened. It doesn't matter. Of course it matters. It's the only thing that matters. We agreed this was temporary. Business. I took money to lie to him. And then you fell in love anyway. These things happen. Helena smiled. Did you think I didn't plan for this possibility? Isabella sat up. What? I chose you specifically because I thought you and Alexander would be perfect for each other. The contract, the money that was just incentive to get you in the door. I was hoping you'd both be smart enough to see what was right in front of you. You manipulated us. Again. I gave you an opportunity. What you did with it was your choice. Helena stood. But here's something to consider. If the contract never existed, if you'd met organically, would you still have these feelings? I don't know, maybe. Then the contract doesn't invalidate those feelings. It just gave them a chance to develop.
He deserves someone who didn't accept money to pretend to love him. He deserves someone who actually does love him. The how and why you got there is irrelevant. Helena moved to the door. Sleep on it, but don't let pride destroy something real just because it started as something fake. She left Isabella alone with too many thoughts and not enough answers. Sleep came eventually, fitful and full of dreams where Alexander loved her and hated her in equal measure. Tomorrow they would talk. Tomorrow everything would change, one way or another. Isabella woke to pounding on her door. "Miss Hartford! Miss Hartford! Please wake up!" She stumbled out of bed, opening the door to find Annie white-faced and trembling. "What's wrong?" "It's Lord Edmund, miss. He's downstairs with the Duke, and he's shouting about proof and contracts, and oh, miss, I think he knows." Isabella's blood turned to ice. "Where's Alexander?" "The study." "But, miss, you shouldn't—"
Isabella was already running still in her nightgown, not caring. She reached the study to find the door open. Edmund's voice carrying into the hallway. "Found the contract, Alexander. The actual signed contract paying her £5,000 to pretend to be your fiancée for 6 months. Isabella froze in the doorway. Alexander stood behind his desk, face pale. Edmund held papers, the contract waving them like a weapon. "Edmund, where did you get that?" Alexander's voice was dangerously quiet. "From your mother's private papers. I knew something was wrong, so You broke into my mother's study and stole private documents. I was protecting you from making the biggest mistake of your life." Edmund turned, seeing Isabella. His expression twisted with contempt. "There she is, the fraud. How much have you already collected? Half more." "Edmund, stop." Alexander moved from behind the desk. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly. She's a con artist who manipulated you and your mother into this ridiculous scheme. Probably planned the whole thing from the moment she got herself fired by Lady Ashworth." "That's not true," Isabella said, finding her voice despite her shaking hands. "Isn't it? You were desperate, destitute, and suddenly engaged to one of the richest men in England. Quite the coincidence." "It was my mother's idea." Helena's voice cut in. She stood in the doorway behind Isabella, fully dressed, despite the early hour. "I approached Isabella, not the other way around." "Because she needed a convenient solution to Vivian Harrington," Edmund shot back, "and this girl saw an opportunity to cash in." "Watch how you speak about my fiancée," Alexander warned. "She's not your fiancée. She's an employee." Edmund slapped the contract onto the desk. "Read it yourself. 6 months of pretending in exchange for £5,000. This whole engagement is a business transaction." Alexander's jaw tightened. "I'm aware of the contract's terms. I helped negotiate them."
"Then you've lost your mind, or she's got you so twisted up you can't see straight."
Edmund turned back to Isabella. "Tell him the truth. Tell him you don't actually love him, that this was always about the money." "Edmund," Alexander started. "No, let her answer." Edmund moved closer to Isabella. "Go ahead. Tell us you love him. Look me in the eye and say it." Isabella's mouth went dry. Every eye in the room was on her. Edmund's hostile, Helena's calculating, Alexander's unreadable. "You can't even say it," Edmund said triumphantly. "Because it's a lie. All of it." "Edmund, that's enough." Alexander's voice was steel. "Get out of my house." Not until you face reality. This woman is using you. I said, get out. The roar silenced everyone. Alexander stood rigid fury radiating from him. You broke into my mother's private study, stole confidential documents, and invaded my privacy because you thought you knew better than I did about my own life. You've crossed every line of friendship and decency. Alexander's voice dropped to something more dangerous than shouting. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave, now, and you're never coming back. Alexander, I'm trying to save you. From what? From making my own choices. From finally being happy. Alexander moved to stand beside Isabella. Yes, the engagement started as a business arrangement. Yes, I was aware of the terms, and yes, I agreed to them willingly because the alternative was marrying Vivian Harrington and being miserable for the rest of my life. So you admit it's fake. It was fake, past tense. Alexander took Isabella's hand. Somewhere along the way it became real, for both of us. Isabella's heart stopped. He was defending their arrangement, even knowing Edmund had proof of the contract. Edmund laughed bitterly. You actually believe that you think she developed real feelings while being paid to pretend? I think people are capable of surprising themselves. I think emotions don't follow contracts or logic. Alexander's grip on Isabella's hand tightened. And I think you need to leave before I have you physically removed. Fine, but this isn't over. Edmund grabbed the contract. The entire ton will know about this by tomorrow. Your reputation, her reputation, both destroyed. I hope she was worth it. He stormed out. The front door slammed hard enough to rattle windows. Silence filled the study. Well, Helena said finally, that could have gone better. Could it? Isabella pulled her hand from Alexander's. He has proof, physical proof that this was all a lie. By tomorrow everyone will know. Then we get ahead of it, Helena said. Control the narrative before Edmund spreads his version. How the contract exists. The terms are clear. There's no spinning that into something romantic. We tell the truth, Alexander said quietly. Both women turned to stare at him. Are you insane? Helena demanded. The truth will destroy you both. Will it? Or will honesty be more powerful than Edmund's gossip? Alexander moved to his desk, pulling out fresh paper. We tell them yes, it started as an arrangement. My mother approached Isabella with a business proposition to help us both solve problems. But over the course of getting to know each other, real feelings developed. We tried to fight them, tried to maintain professional distance, and failed spectacularly. No one will believe that, Isabella said. They will if we sell it properly. The reluctant love story, the Duke and the music teacher who fell in love despite trying not to. Alexander started writing. We'll draft a statement, release it before Edmund can spread his version. Frame it as a romance that overcame unusual circumstances. That's insane, Isabella repeated. Do you have a better idea? She didn't. But the thought of laying everything bare, admitting to London society that she'd been paid to fake an engagement, made her want to vomit. There's another option, Helena said slowly. We could end the engagement. Claim it was a mutual decision, pay Isabella what she's owed, and let her disappear quietly. In a few months, everyone forgets she existed. The suggestion hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Is that what you want? Alexander asked Isabella. To walk away? I don't know what I want anymore. Isabella's voice cracked. This whole thing has become such a mess. Maybe ending it cleanly is the kindest option for everyone. The kindest option, Alexander repeated flatly. After everything we've been through, you want to just walk away because it got complicated. It's not just complicated, it's impossible. Edmund has proof we lied to everyone. Your reputation will be destroyed if you stay with me. I don't care about my reputation. You should. You're a duke. You have responsibilities.
a position to maintain. I have a life to live, and I don't want to live it without you. Alexander crossed to her, taking both her hands. Yes, this started as a lie. Yes, we made mistakes, but somewhere in the middle of all that pretending I fell in love with you. Actually, completely terrifyingly in love with you. Tears burned Isabella's eyes. You can't mean that. Why not? Because I took money to pretend to love you. How can you trust any of this is real? Because I know you. Alexander's thumbs brushed across her knuckles. I know you tried to maintain distance. I know you reminded me constantly that this was temporary.
I know you fought your feelings as hard as I fought mine. That's not the behavior of someone who's acting. Alexander, tell me you don't love me. Look me in the eye and say you feel nothing, and I'll let you go. I'll pay you the full amount, we'll end the engagement, and you'll never hear from me again. His voice roughened. But if there's even a chance you feel what I feel, then we fight for this. Together. Isabella's tears spilled over. I do love you. God help me, I do. But that doesn't make this okay. You deserve someone who came to you honestly, not someone who had to be bribed into your life. I deserve someone who makes me happy. Someone who challenges me and infuriates me and makes me want to be better. Alexander pulled her closer. That's you. The circumstances don't change that. The ton won't care about circumstances. They'll crucify us both. Let them try. I'm a duke. I have more power than Edmund or Vivian or anyone else who wants to destroy us. We tell our story first, we tell it honestly, and we dare them to judge us for finding love in unexpected places. That's incredibly naive. Or incredibly brave. Choose how you want to see it. Isabella looked at Helena. What do you think? I think my son is finally acting like he has a spine instead of letting duty dictate his entire existence. Helena smiled. I think you two found something real in the middle of my manipulation, and you'd be fools to throw it away because of Edmund's self-righteousness. But the scandal will blow over. Everything does eventually. The question is whether you're willing to weather it together or if you'll let fear drive you apart. Isabella's mind spun. Every logical part of her screamed this was impossible, but her heart, her stupid, traitorous heart, wanted to believe they could survive this. If we do this, she said slowly, we tell the complete truth. No more lies, no more pretending. We admit the arrangement, admit how it changed, and let people decide how they want to react. Agreed, Alexander said immediately. And if your reputation is destroyed, if you lose political allies or social standing, you don't blame me. Never. And my mother can never know the truth. She believes this is real, and that's how it stays. Of course. Isabella took a shaky breath. Then yes, we fight for this. But Alexander, if it falls apart, if we can't survive the scrutiny, we will. Because we're not pretending anymore. This is real, messy, complicated, and completely real. He kissed her, and this time there was nothing professional about it. It was desperate and passionate and full of everything they'd been holding back for weeks. When they finally broke apart, Helena was smiling. About time you two stopped being idiots. Now let's draft that statement before Edmund spreads his poison. They spent the next 2 hours crafting their response. Alexander wrote with brutal honesty, admitting the arrangement, explaining the circumstances, describing how feelings developed despite their best efforts to remain detached. This is either brilliant or suicidal, Isabella said, reading the final draft. Probably both. Alexander sealed the letter. I'll have it delivered to every major paper in London. By tomorrow morning, our version will be everywhere. And Edmund's version will sound petty in comparison. We're not denying anything he claimed. We're just adding context and emotion. Helena read the statement one more time. It's good. vulnerable without being weak, honest without being pathetic. People will either love it or hate it, but they won't be able to ignore it. Comforting, Isabella muttered. A knock interrupted them. A footman entered, looking nervous. Your Grace, there's a crowd gathering outside, people from the papers asking questions about Lord Edmund's claims. Alexander's expression hardened. Already? How did they— Edmund must have gone straight to them, Helena said. He wanted to control the narrative first. Then we give them something better. Alexander stood. I'll speak to them myself. Alexander, no. Isabella started. Yes. Right now, while emotions are raw and honest. He took her hand. Come with me. Let them see us together. I'm in my nightgown. Then change quickly. We have 5 minutes before I go out there, with or without you. Isabella ran to her room, Annie helping her into a simple day dress in record time. No time for elaborate hair or jewelry, just basic presentability. When she returned, Alexander was already at the front door, crowd of reporters visible through the windows. Ready? He asked. Not even slightly. Good. Neither am I. He took her hand. But we're doing it anyway. They stepped outside together. Immediately reporters surged forward, shouting questions. Your Grace, is it true the engagement is fake? Did you pay Miss Hartford to pretend? Is this all an elaborate scheme? Alexander raised his hand for silence. Gradually the crowd quieted. I have a statement to make. I'll answer no questions afterwards, so listen carefully. He pulled out the letter they'd drafted. Yes, my engagement to Miss Hartford began as a business arrangement. My mother approached her with a proposition: pretend to be my fiancée for 6 months in exchange for financial compensation. Miss Hartford accepted because she desperately needed money for her mother's medical care. I agreed because I was facing pressure to marry someone I didn't love. Gasps and furious scribbling from the reporters. What we didn't anticipate, Alexander continued, his voice steady, was that spending time together, getting to know each other, would lead to genuine feelings. We tried to maintain professional distance. We failed. Somewhere between the contract signing and now we fell in love. How convenient, someone shouted. Is it because I can assure you falling in love with someone you're paying to pretend to love you is the most inconvenient, terrifying thing I've ever experienced? Alexander's grip on Isabella's hand tightened. I spent weeks questioning every smile, every kind word, wondering if it was real or performance. It was torture. What changed your mind? Another reporter called, despite Alexander's no questions rule. Alexander looked at Isabella. She kept trying to push me away, kept reminding me this was temporary. That's not the behavior of someone trying to trap a duke. That's the behavior of someone terrified of getting hurt. Isabella's eyes burned with tears. So yes, Alexander said, turning back to the crowd, this engagement started as a lie, but it's not a lie anymore. I love Isabella Hartford. I plan to marry her, and anyone who has a problem with how we met can take it up with me personally. He pulled Isabella back inside before they could ask more questions, slamming the door on the shouting reporters. Well, he said, that's done. That was insane, Isabella breathed. Completely, but honest. He pulled her into his arms. No more pretending, no more wondering if it's real. This is real. She kissed him, pouring everything she felt into it, fear and hope and love and terror all tangled together. Helena appeared looking satisfied. The papers will have a field day with this, but you controlled the narrative. That's what matters. What happens now? Isabella asked. Now we wait. Some people will condemn you. Others will romanticize you. Most will just gossip endlessly. Helena smiled.
but you'll survive it. Together. The next few days were brutal. Papers ran competing stories, some sympathetic to their tale of unexpected love, others condemning them for deception and impropriety. Society split between those who found it romantic and those who found it scandalous. Lady Thornwick visited, delivering her verdict with characteristic bluntness. "Foolish, reckless, and completely absurd. I approve entirely." "You do?" Isabella asked, shocked. "Better to marry for love disguised as business than business disguised as love. At least you two know what you're getting." The old woman smiled. "Besides, you play Chopin beautifully, and you're not afraid of my grandson. That's enough for me." Vivian, predictably, tried to fan the scandal flames. But after Alexander's public declaration, her attacks looked petty and jealous. She eventually retreated to the country defeated. Edmund never apologized. He cut ties with Alexander, completely convinced he'd been betrayed. Alexander mourned the friendship, but didn't regret his choice. The most surprising support came from Isabella's mother. When they finally told her the truth, terrified she'd be horrified, she laughed. "You think I didn't suspect I've known you your whole life, Isabella. You don't fall in love in 3 weeks, but I also know you wouldn't fake love convincingly unless it stopped being fake. So I chose to believe in the real parts. You're not angry. I'm grateful. You saved my life through sheer stubborn determination to do whatever it took. That's my daughter." Mrs. Hartford took Alexander's hand. "And you. You could have walked away when it got complicated. You didn't. That tells me everything I need to know." 3 months after Edmund's exposure, Alexander and Isabella stood in the same garden where Helena had first made her proposition. "Do you regret it?" Isabella asked. "Any of it?" "Not even slightly, though I could have done without Edmund's dramatic betrayal." "I meant the contract, starting everything with a lie." Alexander pulled her close. "The contract got you into my life. That's all it was ever meant to do. Everything after that, that was real. That was us choosing each other despite having every reason not to." "Your mother is terrifyingly manipulative. Always has been. But this time her manipulation gave me you, so I'll forgive her." He kissed her forehead. "We should set a date. Actual wedding, not just the engagement party circus." "Your grandmother suggested spring." "Of course she did. She's been planning the wedding since before we were actually engaged." Alexander smiled. "Spring it is then, unless you want longer." "No, I've waited long enough for something real. I'm not waiting anymore." The wedding, when it came, was smaller than expected. Only people who actually supported them, not social climbers looking for gossip. Isabella wore emerald green, after all Madame Dubois, creating something that made her look like she'd always belonged in Alexander's world. Her mother cried through the entire ceremony. Helena looked smugly satisfied. Lady Thornwick declared it acceptable, which was high praise indeed. And when Alexander said his vows, Isabella knew without doubt they were true. No contract, no pretending. Just 2 people who'd found love in the most improbable circumstances and chosen to fight for it. At the reception, Edmund sent a letter. Not an apology, but acknowledgement that perhaps he'd been wrong, that perhaps some lies led to truth worth keeping. Alexander burned it. Some friendships couldn't be recovered, and that was fine. He had everything he needed. Years later, when people asked how they met, Alexander and Isabella told the truth. The whole truth: business arrangement, fake engagement, Helena's manipulation, Edmund's betrayal, the scandal that nearly destroyed them. But here's the thing about pretending to love someone. Alexander always finished. If you're not careful, you stop pretending and start meaning it. And then you're stuck with them forever. Stuck with them.
Isabella would echo, taking his hand. What a terrible fate.
They had 3 children who thought the story was hilarious. The eldest, a daughter, insisted she'd only marry someone she met through equally ridiculous circumstances. "Normal is boring," she declared at age 12, sounding exactly like her grandmother. Isabella's mother lived another 15 years, long enough to meet all her grandchildren and lecture them about the importance of being dramatic. Helena took full credit for everything naturally. She told anyone who'd listen that she'd engineered the greatest love story of the decade. She wasn't entirely wrong, because sometimes the best things start with the worst plans. Sometimes lies lead to truth. Sometimes contracts become promises. And sometimes, just sometimes, pretending to love someone teaches you what real love actually means. Isabella Hartford had cried alone in a garden, desperate and broken. The Dowager Duchess had whispered an impossible offer. And from that moment of manipulation and desperation bloomed something neither of them had planned, for a love strong enough to survive its own deception, honest enough to admit its dishonest beginning, and real enough to last forever. Not despite how it started, but because of it. Because they'd earned each other the hard way. And that made all the difference.